Hey teacher, how do I get rich? Get good grades. Uh-huh. And then am I rich? No. And then you go to a good college. Okay. And then I'm rich. No. Then you have to get a good job, work for 40 to 50 years, grinding out from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then I'm rich? No, but Jonathan, it's not always about the money. Huh. It's not always about the money. Then why are people at work always talking about how much money they're not making? Folks, I've worked for itty bitty startups, I've worked at Fortune 500 companies. I can confidently tell you here, it is about the money. And it's okay that it's about the money. In fact, let's do this. Comment down below. If you stop getting paid to do what you do, would you continue doing it? My guess is likely no. And that's totally fine. So then why is all of our money education happening after we leave the education system? That I don't actually have an answer for. But what I do have an answer for you, as someone who became the first self-made millionaire in their family by the age of 29, here are the top 6 money lessons that school does not teach you, but that they absolutely should. Lesson 1, debt. When I say those 4 letters, you probably, shiver a little bit. Because debt is oftentimes vilified, rightfully, wrongfully. We'll get into that a little bit in the video, but the thing is, you need to realize debt is leverage. Knowing how to use debt is knowing how to use other people's money. Though the only message that I ever got in school was debt bad, no debt, avoid debt, which on the surface I would not disagree with, because if you mismanage it, it can absolutely wreck you. But on the flip side, debt is as good or as bad as your ability to use it. So here's an analogy. Let's say you've just bought a new home and you need to go ahead and paint the inside of the home, but the only tool you had was a hammer. You probably wouldn't get very far. In the same manner, let's say you open a new credit card. You get a $10,000 credit limit, you hold a $10,000 credit limit, you make minimum payments. That interest rate will absolutely ruin you. But instead, let's imagine you had one of those really nice paint brush rollers for your house. But better yet, let's imagine you had one of those spray paint guns. You probably would get the painting done pretty quickly. In fact, you might even enjoy it. In the same manner, with the credit cards, when you understand that the money that you're charging on a card is not your money and that you're borrowing it from a bank, and as long as you're paying on time and in full every single month, you reap all the benefits of that card. But allow me to really crystallize this with an example of leveraging other people's money, specifically the bank's money. Let's take a look at real estate. If you want to buy a house today, you've got 2 options. 1, save up cash. Save up $200, $300, $5,000 of cash, buy it, no debt. How long though do you think that might take? Certainly isn't gonna take a couple months. It probably isn't gonna be a couple of years. It could be 5, 8, 10 years plus, okay? However, your second option, you can go ahead and get a loan. Let's take that $500,000 property. We can put down 5% or 10% or 15%, and the bank is gonna give us a loan for the rest. And so by using debt, you've now managed to purchase a property that's worth $500,000. You had to put up $25,000 or $50,000, and the bank gave you the rest of the money. That right there is leveraging other people's money. We're gonna talk about real estate in a later section, but over time, the equity is gonna grow, you're gonna pay down that principal, and now you're building wealth. But you couldn't have gotten there if you did not first embrace debt and understand how it works. And by having a mortgage or a fixed installment loan, you're actually helping to build your credit score. And so for me, by not being afraid of debt and actually kind of embracing it, I got a credit card pretty early on and I was able to build a very strong credit score, which leads me into lesson 2, credit score. It's funny, as we went through school, I'm sure there was one singular number that everybody paid attention to. Yeah, body count. What? No. You act like I talk to girls. The other number, grade point average, or GPA. And whether we liked it or not, this number was used to label our academic aptitude or how smart we were in high school and college. But the minute we lock down a job, that number becomes completely obsolete and irrelevant, and a new number takes its place, the credit score. You can think of a credit score like a GPA, but for your financial health. Similar to how a GPA told schools how smart you were, a credit score is going to tell lenders how financially trustworthy and dependable you are. And similar to how having a higher GPA might get you into better schools or better internships, having a higher credit score tells lenders you're trustworthy and gets you a lower interest rate, which could save you potentially tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a credit score has 5 key components: on-time payments, credit utilization, average length of credit history, hard inquiries, and mix of credit. Now, they're not all equally weighted. On-time payments count for 35%, and credit utilization accounts for 30%. 65% if you make your payments on time and in full. 15% for length of credit history, 10% for credit mix, and another 10% for hard inquiries. But right there, it tells you, make your payments on time and in full, and you're good to go. And if you want to get started, one of the easiest ways is getting a secured or student credit card when you are 18. If you're under the age of 18 and your parents have a good credit score, ask them to add you as an authorized user to their credit card. You don't need the card, you can leave it in a sock drawer, but you're gonna be able to inherit some of their good credit, so when you turn 18, you have a higher score, you can get better credit cards. And folks, I said it once and I'll say it a million times, make sure you pay your credit cards on time and in full. And for me, by having a really high credit score, I was able to get the best rates possible when I purchased my very first rental property, 2.875% for a 30-year fix, which leads me to lesson number 3, real estate. And when it comes to real estate, I don't mean just buying your forever home. I'm talking about real estate investing. Billionaire Andrew Carnegie famously said that over 90% of millionaires created wealth through real estate. And to me, I think real estate is one of the most accessible ways for anybody to attain wealth. And that's because anyone can come in, use leverage, aka other people's money, aka the bank's money, to acquire properties. Let me go ahead and use this example. I purchased my very first property at the age of 26. I scrimped and saved to come up with that down payment, which was 3.5% of $620,000. And the bank had to come up with the remainder 96%. Now, there is no way I could have saved up $100, $200, $500, or $600,000 in any reasonable amount of time. And on the flip side of it, if I think about the stock market, if I want to buy $620,000 worth of stocks, I can't go to a bank and ask for a loan for over $580,000. No, they would probably just laugh in my face. However, if I want to buy a $620,000 property, I can go to the bank and ask for a loan for 96% of that amount. That right there, folks, is insane. And I really want you to appreciate how incredible it is that anyone can access that. Well, anyone that's got a credit score high enough and that is willing to take the risk of using leverage. So back to my first property, I did a traditional house hack. I lived in one unit, I rented out the other units. That brought my housing cost down to about $200 a month. When I moved out of that unit now kicks a little bit over $1,200 a month in positive cash flow. In addition, in 1 year's time, we had the house reappraised and it appreciated about $150,000. Couple that with all the debt pay down that we've had, I accumulated over $200,000 of equity or net worth growth. I put down $25,000, $30,000. Now that certainly wasn't easy. I scrimped and saved for that, but think about that. $20,000 to $30,000 created over $200,000 of positive net worth, and I still have that unit and it's kicking me over $1,200 of cash flow a month. And now I have $200,000 of equity I can tap into. Whether I do a cash out refinance, which I probably wouldn't do because interest rates are high, or I take out a home equity line of credit, I can take that and put it towards another property, and you can kind of see how this can snowball rather quickly. And the thing with real estate is you don't really need to know everything there is to know before you jump in. I knew nothing about real estate before I bought my first property. All I did was listen to podcasts, the Bigger Pockets podcast, read on forums, YouTube videos, and read a couple of books and just dedicate myself to trying to figure this thing out. And I honestly didn't have 100% of it figured out when I got going, but I knew that this was something that I wanted to jump into. And I knew that using an FHA 3.5% down loan to buy a multifamily property and house hacking it, it was kind of a proven method in the real estate investment game, and that's what I went to do, and that's how I executed on that. The main takeaway I want you to have from this section is that real estate is one of the best ways in which you can leverage other people's money to generate wealth for yourself and your family. And to really crystallize it, folks, I've since now moved out of that two-family, but somebody is not only giving me positive cash flow, but they're also paying the interest. They're basically buying me a house and paying me to buy me a house. That to me is just wild concept. I always thought you needed to have millions and millions of dollars to purchase real estate, to buy these giant high rises. But the truth of the matter is you could do a 3.5% down FHA house hack. It doesn't even have to be a multifamily. It could be a single family. Buy for $200,000, $300,000. You live in it, you rent out the other units, you move out, you fully rent it. There you go. Lesson 4. Index funds. If you want to ask me and say, John, I want to invest. I just don't want to do a lot of things. This real estate thing might be too much. Like, what should I do? Low cost, broad-based market index funds. That's it. I've got a story for you. So back in high school, during a semester in economics, we had this simulation in which everyone in the class got like $100,000. And basically the challenge was, here's $100,000, go invest. And there was a simulation program that we used, and everyone's all jazzed up like, oh, I've got the optimal strategy. This is what I'm gonna invest in. I'm gonna read the financials here, and I'm gonna read these charts. And the thing is though, that's probably the worst way to teach students how to invest in the stock market. Because the person who did the best was someone who took an outsized position in some random company that had a great quarter. That's it. But if you think about it, over an investment time horizon, It's not in 3-month increments or 6-month increments. It is 40, 50, 60 years. And there is data out there to prove that the most efficient way for retail investors over an investment time horizon is a low-cost, broad-based market index fund. There have been studies done where you go and ask people who read charts for a living, basically the red bar, green bar people who are like, hey, it's a head and shoulders, therefore it's going up. And in those studies, those people were no better than chance, which is a 50-50 coin flip, at actually projecting where something would go up or down. In fact, there's a study in which somebody took a coin, they flipped it heads, they flipped it tails, and they marked whether it was heads or tails, and they basically plotted it. And then they gave it to someone who read charts professionally and said, hey, what is this? The people who read the charts actually thought it was a real stock and they made predictions off of it. But in fact, it was a coin flip. The other side of the folks, who are the ones who basically are fundamentalists, they go and they pour through the financial statements. They look at the executive team, they think of the industry and the company, and they're like, this is a good stock, this is not a good stock. They also fail to consistently beat the stock market. The thing is, we as humans overestimate our ability and underestimate those of others. We think that we can come in and beat the market by reading the charts and reading the financials, that we somehow have some insight. The fact is, and I know YouTube and TikTok and CNBC would have you believe otherwise, but the fact is, we cannot beat the market. The sooner you accept that as a retail investor, the better off you will be, because you are gonna make so much more money by not listening to the hot tip on TikTok of some guy saying, hey, here's why this stock is great, because that. Or the person on CNBC, I'm all in for this stock because of this. It just doesn't work. However, you hear it because it sells, because there's some sort of product behind it. But I'm here to tell you right now, reading the charts, looking at the financials, if you're early on in your investment time horizon, that stuff is all it just does not work. What works for retail investors, truly, in terms of like, you want to invest in the stock market, you want to make money, is buying low-cost, broad-based market index fund. In fact, for me, 90% of my portfolio are index funds. I actually right now only have one stock, which was Meta. And that was lucky. Trust me, I'm gonna be on the first to tell you, I just got lucky. That thing went down. I was like, it looks a little down. I'm okay with this money if I don't make it back ever again. I put it in. But that's not an investment. That was like purely a gamble. And I'll be honest, like, yeah, sometimes people are gonna have the itch. Like, I do want to be in the market a little bit more active. That's fine. Just make sure it's not the majority of your portfolio. Because for the majority of your portfolio, get that low-cost index fund and sit on your hands. Which brings me to lesson number 5, time. This one is a simple one. The longer you can stay in the market, the greater your return. Did you know that 99% of Warren Buffett's wealth came after his 50th birthday? At the age of 59, Warren Buffett had a $3.9 billion net worth. That's crazy. Yet at the age of 72, he had a net worth of $36 billion. And at 92, he had a net worth of $109 billion. That right there is just time in the market. But the only way you're going to have time in the market is if you don't blow up your positions. The only way to do that, low-cost, broad-based market index fund and chill. Not to mention, folks, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. When we look at the crashes of 2000, 2008, the COVID crash. In all of those crashes, money left the market. When did money come back in? Money came in during the bull rushes. Albert Einstein himself said compounding was one of the great wonders of the world. But in order for compounding interest to work, you need time. So the earlier you can get in and start investing, you should absolutely jump on it. But once you're invested, try not to exit those positions for as long as you possibly can. Now, of course, I understand things come up, you need money, that's fine. But just remember, time in the market beats timing the market. In the 6th money lesson that school would never teach us, because it probably goes against everything they do try to teach us, and that is financial independence, retire early. Let me ask you folks, how many of you wake up every day saying, golly, I can't wait to work for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years of contributing to some corporate overlord so that when I'm 64, 68, I can retire and live my life? A lot of you probably are thinking, well, no, I would actually like to live life a little bit earlier than that. Well, the thing is, you can. You see, all you need to do is find your number. That number is the magic number in which you need to have invested so that you can never work again day in your life. That when your boss comes to you and asks you to stay late, you can say, you know what? Or maybe you're staying late every single week to complete some assignment. And then you realize, wait a minute, I've got my number. Yeah. That right there, folks, in my opinion, that's nirvana. You've made it, you've hit it. And the thing is, it's not a crazy concept. It's not a crazy number to actually try to hit. So here's how you would figure it out. For me, so now I'm 30. My goal has always been, by the time I'm 40, I'm done. I can walk away from everything. Now, recently I became a full-time content creator, but before that, I was working as an enterprise account executive for one of the largest software companies in the world. I thought I had made it. Jackpot. I'm gonna do my sales career. I'm gonna buy a bunch of real estate. And by the time I'm 40, I should have enough money invested in the market in real estate that I can just walk away. And to figure out what that FIRE number is so that you never have to work a day in your life again is pretty straightforward. So what you need to do is try to figure out, what do you think your expenses are when you retire? What are your housing expenses, food, travel, entertainment? What are those roughly? 50,000 a year, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, whatever that number is a year, divide that by 0.04. So let's say your projected expenses when you fully retire are $100,000 a year. You divide that by 0.04. That would give you $2.5 million. So $2.5 million invested ideally in a low-cost market index fund would more or less mean that, yeah, you can just walk away, because every single year, assuming that the stock market, which the S&P 500 historically returns anywhere from 8 to 10%, you withdraw 4% of it, that balance should remain there. And so once you have 2.5 million and it's invested in a low-cost broad-based market index fund at a 4% withdrawal rate, you're done. That's it. You're walking away. I'd love to hear from folks if you ever calculated or thought about calculating what a FIRE number might look like. And again, I think there's a stigma around people who FIRE as they scrimp and save and they live on the edges, but there are so many different flavors of FIRE. We have lean FIRE, barista FIRE, regular FIRE, fat FIRE. It all depends on how you want to live your life, but it's understanding that there is a world in which you are not just solely tied to your corporate life, because you've managed effective financial planning and you were aware of it from a very young age. Again, this is something I don't think school would ever teach us, because what school prepares us is to go into the workforce so that we can rise and grind 9 to 5, 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week until we retire at age 62, 63 and live our life. And to me, that is just such a depressing view of things, because at 62, 65, 68, can you do the things that you want to do in your 20s, 30s, 40s? If you can, power to you, but the majority of us can't. And so why don't we bring forward that timeline? Why don't we retire at 50, at 40, heck, 30? But to do that, you need to have a very clear understanding of what is your FIRE number and having a plan to hit that. Folks, this was a great video. A little bit different than what we've done before, but I would love to know, please, comments, questions, feedback down below. Would you like more examples of these lessons? Did it resonate? Or are you like, nah, John, this wasn't it for me? Either way though, appreciate y'all for sticking around. I'll catch y'all next video. Peace.